Hi all, that's me just finished tap dancing again. Today I'd like to welcome Joel Thomas, Mary Mahoney and David Tatem, and they're going to give us a session on creating an open digital toolkit for first year learners on domains. Over to you folks.
All right. Hello, everyone. I'm Joelle Thomas, the User Engagement Librarian at Trinity College. These are my colleagues, Mary Mahoney, our Digital Scholarship Coordinator, and David Tatem, our Instructional Technologist. So we're going to go over briefly what our digital liberal arts framework is that we developed and why we picked domains as the platform to realize the digital toolkits that we wanted to create with it. Yep. It'd be great if the slide was advancing. I don't know what's wrong with Chrome. I'm very sorry. Just one moment while I try to figure out why it's not going anywhere. Click, click. Out of all the things I thought might go wrong, I'm going to say this is the one I did not anticipate. I'm going to stop sharing, sorry. Dave or Mary, if you've got it open, if you would like to share, because I don't know what's going on.
Okay.
It's now frozen in the tab that I'm using.
Okay, let's see if I can get this going here. I'm going to go ahead and start since I have the next slide anyway. So I want to talk about sort of where we started. Let's go back to the beginning here. A few years ago, Trinity College revisited their strategic plan, right? A lot of colleges every few years do their strategic plan, of course. And so in 2017, we adopted a new plan to support our mission, which is to prepare students to be bold, independent thinkers who lead transformative lives, right? Great grand talk. We wanted to create bold learners, create an inclusive community, and engaged citizens. So as we do a lot of our bigger projects, we like to at least refer back to the strategic plan. You'll see here the three pillars of the plan: be a first choice college for students, faculty, and staff, connect with Hartford and the world, and create a sustainable future. So when we started developing what we started calling a digital competencies plan, we ended up coming up with our different name, our digital liberal arts framework. We realized very quickly that a lot of the things we were talking about had real obvious direct connections back to a lot of these pillars. So it's always a good idea when you can connect things back to your college's strategic plan as you're talking to the administration, other offices for support. So I just kind of wanted to ground this in our strategic plan, which is sort of where it started.
Thanks, Dave. And in 2019, just to add to that, Trinity College adopted a digital liberal arts framework. And this framework offers students opportunities to reflect on and develop digital skills, which, if you think about liberal arts colleges as teaching students how to think, that this liberal arts framework, digital liberal arts framework, is something that invites students or provides students with competencies to think with, digital competencies in particular, including information and data literacy, communication and collaboration, digital content creation and making, safety, and problem solving. And our framework draws on a model proposed by the European Union, a link to which we can share, and builds on earlier adaptations proposed by other liberal arts colleges, including Bryn Mawr's Digital Competencies program. Our digital liberal arts framework deliberately defines the safety area broadly to include intersections of technology with physical and mental health, covering topics from ergonomic device use to developing healthy emotional boundaries with social media. And this focus on safety would become the basis for some of our first programming efforts to share the framework with students.
And so as we've kind of been emphasizing, what's really important for us with this framework is to not just provide opportunities for students to become proficient in different technologies and techniques, but to create an environment in which they're exposed to digital scholarship, training, and tools that provide them with perspectives to enhance their overall liberal arts education. We're really trying to empower them and give them the building blocks they need to create things on their own. Really emphasizing empowerment here.
So as things progressed, our college, our faculty came up with what we're calling a new curriculum. It's not entirely new and radical compared to what we had, but they created a new curriculum, which we call it the 32 plus 4. So it's 32 credits plus 4 extra or co-curricular credits. But one of the things they included in that was what is called the Wellness Initiative. And so we had already been working on the digital liberal arts framework, and we had started the toolkits, and then the wellness curriculum, the Wellness Initiative came along. And obviously in wellness, they are certainly focusing on physical health and well-being. You know, things like sports and activities certainly count for that. But they expanded it partly in consultation with us to include topics such as community health and responsibility, mind, body, spirit, and civic and environmental engagement. So it was a great opportunity for us to start thinking these wellness initiative requirements don't start until the incoming class coming in the fall. So we're just starting to gear up and starting to think about these topics. So in 2019, when we first really started doing some programming on our digital liberal arts framework, some of the first projects we decided to try were based on things like privacy and security, digital health, safety, wellness, productivity. So you can see some examples of the guides here. So this is a scrolling capture of what students would see as an example of the productivity guide and the digital health and wellness guide that we had put together. So we had already done this. This was already something that we had decided we want to make this part of our digital liberal arts framework. And so it was a great opportunity for us to continue. So the success of these guides that we had already started inspired us to create a more sustained digital toolkit covering a range of topics helpful to students.
Thanks, Dave. Yeah, and I've shared the links to those initial guides into the chat, which hopefully should be reaching you now. And something that really influenced our thinking to turn to domains and WordPress, as Dave will continue sharing in a moment, is students would come to our initial live events and they would feel helped by it. But in those initial events, when we made these digital resource guides to share out, they had allowed those events to have such a long life after. So in creating our more sustained program, which we're calling our Digital Liberal Arts Toolkit, part of what inspired us was this idea of having guides on a range of topics to help students be successful both inside and outside the classroom that could live in multiple spaces on our website, for example, and be things that, for example, faculty could choose from in an a la carte way to include in their own course websites. And we imagine this being an iterative process that we can refine every year.
So as Mary was saying, when we started talking about the toolkits, there's so much of what we talk about with our digital liberal arts framework is about the broader topics of critical thinking, of creating knowledge and creating content. And it's not tool specific, it's not platform specific. And that's kind of the whole point. So we figured domains was the obvious platform to model that kind of approach. So we love the fact that it's not specific to any tech or apps. We love the flexibility, and we really want to encourage students to take ownership of their digital presence. We talk about privacy and security. That's a big part of it. And one of the best ways to learn more about that is to create a presence and build your own presence. So we're constantly encouraging that. We're constantly encourage students to for experiment and explore, and domains is the perfect match for that, so that they can do things that they want to do and experiment and grow.
So we want to share with you some of this work in progress that we're engaged in right now. And what we've started with is a series of surveys that we asked both our first-year instructors and first-year mentors, or the equivalent of TAs, to fill out. So we asked them a series of questions, mainly drawing on a sense of what are skills or resources you wish you'd known or had when you yourself were a first-year student, in the case of the mentors, or for faculty, what are you seeing in your classroom? What kind of skills can we help provide students with to support them both inside and outside the classroom as they acclimate to being in college? And the responses to that survey have been super helpful to us as we set up our pilot program. So what you see on the slide in front of you are the topics that we'll be covering in our first pilot guides as part of the toolkit. As I mentioned, this is going to be designed in an iterative process. It's our hope every year to invite faculty to co-create the new topic guides with us, new subjects, to refine previous guides, and to work with students and faculty in that adaptive process. So you can see that some of the topics reflect a desire to help students know how to improve their communication with faculty and folks on campus, but also including a range of things, including financial literacy as part of a potential ongoing adulting series.
So as Dave mentioned earlier, we had a couple of earlier events about productivity and digital wellness, and we created digital guides to accompany those. Those were made in Canva, which we had recently bought a subscription to. We liked how they looked. But when we started to roll this out as a larger concept and we wanted to involve more people and we want to have more people building these and moving things forward and hosting them in different places, we had to figure out a different solution for domains instead of paid Canva accounts. So to begin that, we created a couple pilot guides, or actually, I guess I kind of did. That's been my piece of this. So we just settled on WordPress because WordPress is something that we all use. Our college website is hosted on it. It's easy to train people in. And then we began exploring plugins. And in particular, one of our other colleagues had used Elementor to create a site around wellness related to library issues. So created some templates with Elementor, tried those out, saw what we liked and what we didn't like, how easy it is then for other people to reuse the templates to create things, and then took a step back and said, okay, so we have some ideas of how this can work, different ways we can build this. Now let's really talk about storyboarding and kind of what we want to do going forward, because we don't want to have to keep recreating these every time we realize something we've left out. So we came up with must-have components. We looked at a lot of different university websites and saw what they were doing with these. And we were very excited by the idea of something that included those empowerment sections, like what can you do to get started? Here are some specific things you can go do right now. Interactive, how do I do this? How can I apply this in my life? And then also have standard FAQ and contact sections so that students can get more information about these toolkits. So you can see sort of the mock-up for what we're building right now to move forward with these. And those will also be within Elementor in WordPress is currently the plan.
Okay. So as you can see, this is a work in progress. We've been slowly working on our digital competencies, and we'll work on our digital liberal arts framework for a while now. We're just starting to roll out the toolkit. And so we really want to keep thinking about what we're doing and how useful it is and who we're reaching. So we really would like to get feedback and open up some questions to anybody here and see what kind of comments that you might have. What other schools are doing similar things? You know, we found we've been in contact with other places doing digital competencies, but other places doing more of the toolkits. We've come across a number of more and more schools are focusing on first generation resources and things like that, so they're useful. So if there's any great resources that you all can share with us, that would be great. Any other challenges that we might want to be aware of? And then one of the things that is really important to us when we started working on this is how to balance creating a resource that centers students' needs inside and outside the classroom against the broader push towards productivity. So, for example, we like to refer to Anthony Jack's work. His book, The Privileged Poor, is a great read, and talk about the realities that students face and that come from differing backgrounds and different circumstances, and especially how the pandemic has changed all of that, and recognizing where students are coming from and that some students have different needs than others. And we are really trying to focus on first year students because we really want to try to reach students that might not have all the prior knowledge and skills as some other students. We have a broad student, we're a relatively small school, but we have a broad range of student populations, anywhere from first generation college students to students coming from very elite private schools. And they obviously come with a lot of different skills and knowledge. And so that's really important to us to really try to reach the students where they are to help them be successful, both in classroom and out. So we'd really like to open it up and see if there's any comments, suggestions, questions, or direction that you might have for us. Yes, so I see a question in the chat about one of the challenges, sort of what I was just talking about, the range of student competencies and abilities. Some are ahead, some are in the middle, some are way behind. Does the toolkit accommodate this? I want to say that we are trying to be very focused on that. And I think the survey Mary was talking about helps us be informed on that. Joelle or Mary have a follow-up to that?
Yeah, that's part of why we wanted to build these things to be very modular, and so that students can just take what they need or what's interesting. And we also want to make sure that we're mindful about how we might think of students being ahead or behind on skills, as opposed to just having different skills and different approaches to these things. Because we think that often, like, what students value, what they need to know how to do, and how they accomplish something don't really fall on some kind of, like fluent to non-fluent line. There's all kinds of space in there. I see you nodding, Mary. What have you got?
Well, I was just going to add to that and say, I think something that's really important to us in the design process is allowing for many different ways of knowing and different learning styles. And that's honestly been a real challenge, so and not all of these questions are defined even by questions of privilege. Something we learned in the survey process is that students who even come from an affluent background are facing a lot of the same challenges, even as first-gen students, which was sort of a surprise to me in particular. But something that's been a real asset to our project that maybe we didn't mention strongly enough, what we can say now is that we're not just making these kind of on our own. We're working and collaborating with offices across our campus, including the Accessibility Office, our Student Success Office, which offers a range of programs for first-gen students in particular, and really all students. So that's been something that's been an asset to us so far in our design process.
And so you've got another question about, does the toolkit also create a feeling of belonging, being part of a community? I think this might make the relationship from the students to the institution bigger. That's definitely what we're hoping for. I mean, my goal for this is that eventually a lot of people are working on these things because they're hosted on domains. We can have tons of people added to these easily to work on them within WordPress. I would love to get students involved in building these as well, especially from these different departments, because we're working very hard to build stronger relationships on campus.
Yeah, and we've actually had another format that we're calling the community library, where we create a pop-up virtual library of resources catered to a particular club's event, for example, that we get invited to. And in those community libraries, we've actually inserted things like a Padlet board so that students can co-create resources with us and share things that have helped them depending on what the particular theme is. So just to Joelle's point, we're hoping to kind of build co-creation into it.
Yeah, great question. How's the shift to online learning impacted your project? Yeah, it slowed things down dramatically, I would think is probably the best way to put it. It's been a lot more difficult to really pull things together. We've been working a little bit. To be honest, I think it's helped us a lot make sure, sort of center our thinking. It has brought things like the digital divide and inequalities much more to the forefront. As an instructional technologist working directly with students and faculty, I'm handling those kinds of questions every single day, whether it's what kind of equipment students have or what kind of internet access they have or just what their tech skills are. Faculty members say, take a picture of it, convert it to a PDF and send it to me. And some students just say, okay, and they're done. And others are worried they're going to fail the class now because they don't have those tech skills. So it's definitely slowed down the project itself, but in a way, I think it's going to help us because it has really made us continually think about these issues of equality and really be willing and understanding where the students are coming from. And I think it's helped the faculty realize that too, which hopefully will make it easier for us to reach out and have faculty members be partners in the process.
And thank you, Hope, for your question about how faculty can interact or promote these resources. That's something actually we've thought about from the beginning, and actually why we're hoping to collect them all in one place and then to do outreach at. We have an event every fall called Jumpstart where faculty come and learn about new resources that can help support their teaching. And we would like them to see this as something from which they can choose and incorporate into their own class sites and link directly there to support students.
Yeah, that's why one of our big moves was to do the survey of first-year faculty in particular, because we wanted them to tell us what they needed and what they were seeing, so we could work very closely with them to create something they also feel ownership of.
It's a superb resource. It's got me all excited. It's the kind of thing. I think lots of colleges and universities are doing wee bits of this, but it's great. It's really neat to see it all coming together and being pulled together. In terms of co-creation, I can see you're publishing onto a WordPress module. Does that allow co-creation? Have you got lots of editors, or have you got a different place that you collect the ideas and then you publish to WordPress?
It's still kind of a work in progress. Like, we're still finishing up our final designs for what the actual templates will look like. But the goal is to have a fairly large number of editors on this. We've spun up a little instance of WordPress on a digital project server that we use. And then it's fairly easy to add people and train them as they need.
And lots of interest in all the links. I've been posting them up onto YouTube, but when we're finished, we will post the links into Discord as well, so that folks can get them there too. And because we had the wee hiccup at the start, I let us run over a wee bit of time, and now I think we've got a wee break before the next session. So thank you so much, and a round of applause. And I'll see you in the green room. Oh, here we are.
Here we are.
That was great.
Nom nom nom.